Welcome to HFY Beyond Terra, where humanity doesn't just survive, it becomes the galaxy's biggest surprise. Subscribe, and let's go beyond Terra.
Rin Solano hated the smell of antiseptic because it meant someone was already late. The medbay on Dock 9-8 was a narrow corridor of white panels and stubborn flickering lights, wedged between a cargo lift and a noodle stall that refused to die no matter how many inspection notices Rin posted. It wasn't a real clinic. It was a converted storage bay with a cracked autoclave, a refillable nanogalt sprayer that jammed when it felt like it, and a triage cot salvaged from a decommissioned patrol ship. But it was his, and the station's forgotten were alive because of it. He was wrapping the forearm of a mechanic who'd underestimated a hydraulic clamp when the alert chimed. Not the station-wide alarm. The quiet, private tone of his door sensor set to a frequency most people didn't even know existed. Someone was standing outside his medbay, perfectly still, not triggering the motion threshold. Rin's hands paused. The mechanic Jessa, grease up to her elbows, followed his glance. "You expecting ghosts?" "Only bills," Rin muttered. He pushed the privacy screen aside and crossed the short hall. The door didn't have a handle. You had to press your palm to the metal and let the sensor read your identity. Rin pressed his palm. The door sighed open. A figure stood in the dim light of the station corridor, half swallowed by shadow, tall, too tall for most humans, and built in a way that made Rin's brain catalog proportions without permission. Shoulders broad, balance centered, stance effortless. A hooded cloak hid most of the details, but the edges of it were stitched with thread that shimmered like oil on water. Rin's first thought was expensive. His second thought was bleeding. A thin, dark line soaked through the cloak near the ribs. Not the bright red of human blood. This was a deeper shade, almost black, with a violet sheen where the corridor light caught it. The stranger's voice was low and strangely calm. "I need medical assistance." No station accent. No vendor's sing-song. This voice had the kind of measured cadence you heard from people who were used to being obeyed and had grown bored of it. Rin's instincts tried to slam the door. This station had rules. No unregistered aliens past customs, no private patients without security clearance, no trouble. But then the stranger swayed just a fraction, and Rin saw how tightly their gloved hand was pressed against their side. Trouble was already here. "Come in," Rin said, stepping back. Now, the figure moved, crossing the threshold with a smoothness that made Rin think of a blade sliding into its sheath. No hurry, no panic, only purpose. The door sealed behind them. Jessa stared. Rin?" "Go," Rin told her. "And lock up your tools. And if anyone asks, you were never here." "Rin," she hissed, eyes wide. "That's not go." Jessa bolted. Rin guided the stranger toward the triage cot. Up close, the cloak smelled faintly of rain and something metallic. The hood hid the face, but Rin caught a glimpse of skin at the wrist. Smooth, pale, with a faint blue undertone. Not human. Not any of the common dockside species either. "Sit," he said, and the stranger sat. The cot creaked under their weight. Rin flicked on his overhead light and pulled a scanner wand from its cradle. "I'm going to check the wound. If you have any allergies, any." "I am not allergic to your medicines," the stranger said. "That's a bold claim," Rin replied and started scanning. The wand hummed, projecting a holographic overlay of the stranger's torso. It took 2 seconds for Rin's stomach to drop. There were 3 wounds. One was the obvious rib-side bleed. A clean puncture, likely from a narrow blade or high-velocity shard. The second was a long slash across the back, partially cauterized, like someone had tried to seal it with a field tool and failed. The third was worse. A bruise pattern around the chest and shoulder joints that suggested blunt trauma, heavy enough to fracture bone in a human. and there were scars beneath all of them, older and deeper lines and crescents and jagged marks like a history written in pain. Rin swallowed. Who did this to you? The hood tilted. It does not matter. It matters if they use something toxic, Rin snapped, then softened his tone. Look, I'm not trying to interrogate you, but I need information to keep you alive. The stranger's gloved hand loosened slightly from their side. A drop of violet-black blood slid down and fell to the floor with a soft tick. I was attacked, the stranger said. Rin almost laughed, sharp and humorless. No kidding. A pause. Then, almost like an afterthought, on the lower promenade. Dock 98's lower promenade was where deals got made and bodies got lost. Rin had stitched up plenty of people who wandered in from there, faces swollen, ribs cracked, eyes blank from whatever they'd taken to forget the night. He set the scanner aside and reached for his gloves. I'm going to remove your cloak. The stranger didn't move. Rin waited, then said, carefully, I won't treat you without seeing the wound. If you don't want help, you can walk out and bleed somewhere else. For the first time, the stranger's stillness sharpened like a predator deciding whether you were worth the effort. Then they lifted their hands and unfastened the cloak clasp. The cloak slipped away. Rin's breath caught. The stranger wore segmented armor beneath, but it wasn't the bulky kind station security favored. This armor hugged the body like a second skin, made of overlapping plates that moved with every breath. There were tiny etched symbols along the edges, and the surface had the subtle sheen of something engineered beyond Rin's understanding. And the person inside it, female, Rin realized, though the shape was nothing like a human woman's, taller, more angular, with two narrow ridges along the cheekbones visible even under the hood. Her skin was pale with a cool tint and faint bioluminescent lines traced beneath it like constellations. Her eyes, when she finally pushed the hood back, were a hard, clear silver. They held no fear, just exhaustion, contained like a storm behind glass. Rin forced himself to focus on the wound at her ribs. The armor plate there had been cut open, and beneath it the puncture was clean but deep, bleeding steadily. He set out a tray, sterilizer wipe, suture foam, nanogel, pain suppressor, clotting spray. What's your name? He asked automatically. She hesitated, just long enough that Rin knew it wasn't a simple question. Call me, she said, Vea. It sounded like a compromise. All right, Vea, Rin said. This is going to hurt. I have endured worse. Great, Rin muttered. I'll still numb it. He cleaned the wound with a sterilizer wipe. Vea didn't flinch. Not once. When he injected the pain suppressor near the puncture, her muscles tightened slightly, as if the sensation offended her more than the pain itself. Rin leaned closer, examining depth. This went between the ribs. Missed the lung by a few millimeters. Vea's lips curved in something that wasn't a smile. Accuracy is rarely accidental. You're telling me someone aimed for a non-lethal spot? I am telling you, Vea said softly, that someone wanted me slowed. Rin glanced up. Who are you? Vea met his eyes. For a moment, Rin felt like she could see every thought he'd ever tried to hide from himself. Then she said, a traveler. Rin snorted. And I'm the station's chief of happiness. He applied clotting spray. The bleeding slowed, thickened. He injected nanogel into the wound, watching it shimmer and knit tissue together in a slow, precise weave. Then suture foam to seal. Rin moved to the slash on her back. Turn, Vea did, smoothly, as if obeying wasn't a habit but a choice she'd made for the moment. The slash was ugly, ragged at the edges where a cheap cauterizer had burned tissue. Rin clicked his tongue. Whoever tried to seal this did you no favors. They were hurried, or incompetent. He cleaned away charred tissue, applied regenerating gel, and sealed the wound with a flexible patch. The bruising worried him most. He ran his hands lightly over her collarbone area, careful not to press too hard. The scanner showed microfractures in 2 ribs and stress cracks near the shoulder joint. "You should be in a real hospital," Rin said. "I cannot," Vea replied. "Because you're broke?" Rin gestured at her armor. "Yeah, I doubt that." Vea's gaze drifted to his medbay door. "Because hospitals are visible." Rin studied her. "You're hiding." "Perhaps." Rin's mind flicked through possibilities. Runaway noble, deserter, diplomatic envoy in trouble. People paid for invisibility when politics got sharp. "Any internal bleeding?" he asked. "No. You sure?" "I know my body," Vea said, and there was such certainty in it that Rin believed her despite himself. He finished stabilizing the bruises with bone knit spray. "You'll need rest, hydration, and you're not going back out there tonight." Vea's eyes narrowed. "I did not ask for lodging." "Too bad," Rin said, standing and pulling off his gloves. "I'm not patching you up just so you can walk into the same knife again. You can use the back room. My presence may endanger you." Rin shrugged. "My presence endangers me. That's kind of the theme." Vea was silent for a long beat. Then she said quietly, "Why?" Rin blinked. "Why what?" "Why do you do this?" she said, and her gaze swept the medbay, its chipped surfaces, its stacked bandage rolls, the cheap monitors Rin kept running with stubbornness and prayer. "You are not paid enough to risk complications. You are not guarded." Rin leaned back against the counter. "Because people show up bleeding, and if I don't help them, they die. That is." "Simple. It's supposed to be," Rin replied. Vea watched him as if he told her the galaxy was made of paper. Finally, she stood. "I will rest briefly. Then I will leave." Rin opened his mouth to argue, but something in her posture told him it would be a waste of oxygen. "Fine," he said, "but eat something first. You're running on fumes." "I do not require." Rin held up a packet of nutrient paste like a weapon. "This is not a negotiation." For the first time, Vea's expression shifted. A tiny, genuine flicker of amusement. She took the packet. Rin led her to the back room, a storage nook with a fold-out cot and a privacy curtain. "Try not to bleed on my spare sheets. They're sentimental." Vea tilted her head. "Sentimental. Long story. Get some rest." He left her there and returned to his main space, scrubbing his hands and trying to settle the uneasy feeling crawling up his spine. He'd treated dangerous people before. Smugglers, enforcers, even a pirate once, though Rin hadn't known it until a week later when station security blasted his door and demanded information. But Vea felt different. Not because she was alien, because she carried danger like a crown. And she wore it lightly. 2 hours later, Rin was restocking bandages when the station lights flickered. Not unusual. Dock 9-8's power grid was held together by duct tape and optimistic budgeting. But then the corridor outside went quiet. No footsteps. No distant arguments. No passing carts. Silence on a station was like a held breath. Rin reached under his counter and pulled out the only weapon he owned. A stun baton with a cracked grip and a battery that hated him. He crept toward the medbay door and listened. A soft sound like fabric brushing metal. Then a voice muffled through the door. "Open," Rin froze. Not Vea's voice. This one was a human male, rough, impatient. Rin's mind raced. Someone had followed Vea. He glanced toward the backroom curtain. No movement. Vea was either asleep or pretending to be. Rin stepped to the door panel and didn't press his palm. Instead, he spoke through the intercom. We're closed. A pause. Then, medical emergency. Rin almost laughed. Yeah, so is your line. Another pause. We know she's in there. The words hit like cold water. Rin's grip tightened on the baton. I don't know what you're talking about. A sharp exhale. Don't play dumb, Doc. We tracked her blood. Open the door and we walk away with her. You won't be hurt. Rin's mouth went dry. Who are you? People who don't get paid unless we bring her back. So bounty hunters. Rin glanced at the back room again. Still no movement. He lowered his voice. You're making a mistake. The voice outside turned colder. No, Doc. You are. Open the door. Rin didn't move. There was a soft click like a tool engaging. Rin's eyes widened. Hey, the door panel sparked. The lock began to whine, forced. Rin's heart slammed against his ribs. He could run. He could hide. He could hope they didn't bother checking behind the curtain. But hope was a flimsy shield. Rin stepped back, baton raised, and shouted, Vea! The back curtain slid aside. Vea stood there fully awake, cloak back on, hood up. Her wounds were sealed, but even at rest she moved like someone carved from intent. She took one look at Rin's face, then at the door, and understood. How many? She asked. I don't know, Rin whispered. At least 2. Vea's shoulders rose and fell in a slow breath. They should have come with more. Rin stared. You're not, the door lock snapped. Metal shrieked as the panel buckled. Rin backed away. Vea, listen, this is a medbay. I'm not equipped for a firefight. I am, she said simply. Rin blinked. You're wounded. Vea's hood tilted toward him. I am alive. The door slammed open. 3 figures entered fast. 2 humans in armored jackets, visors down, and 1 tall alien with 4 arms and a hooked rifle. Their boots hit Rin's floor like they owned it. The lead human raised his pistol. There you are. Rin stepped in front of Vea without thinking. This is my clinic. You don't. The bounty hunter shoved him aside with 1 arm. Rin stumbled into the counter, pain flaring in his hip. Doc stays out of it, the hunter growled. Vea moved. She didn't lunge. She didn't charge. She simply stepped forward and the air changed. The bounty hunters hesitated not from politeness, but from instinct. Predators recognized other predators. The lead hunter aimed at her chest. Hands where I can. Vea's hand snapped up. Not to surrender. To grab the man's wrist. There was a sound like a branch breaking. The pistol clattered to the floor. The hunter screamed briefly before Vea twisted and used his momentum to slam him into the wall hard enough to rattle Rin's shelves. The second human fired. Vea shifted her weight, and the shot hit empty air where she had been. She moved like water, finding the easiest path, no wasted motion. She kicked the second hunter's knee sideways. It bent wrong. He dropped with a howl. The 4-armed alien raised their rifle and fired a burst. Vea spun, cloak flaring, and the rounds hit the metal cot, shredding padding. Rin ducked, heart in his throat. Vea closed the distance in a blink. She seized the rifle barrel, yanked, and used it to pull the alien off balance. Her elbow drove into its throat. 1 hand struck its temple. Another twisted the rifle free. The alien collapsed, choking. Silence. Rin stayed crouched behind the counter, breathing hard, ears ringing. He looked up slowly. The first hunter tried to push himself off the wall, dazed. Vea stepped toward him. The hunter lifted a shaky hand. Your... Vea's voice was soft. You were told not to come. Fear widened the hunter's eyes. Please, Vea bent, picked up his pistol, and ejected the magazine. She pocketed the ammo, then dropped the empty weapon at his feet like a discarded toy. You will leave, she said. You will forget this place. The hunter swallowed. We can't. The contract. Vea leaned closer. Rin couldn't see her eyes under the hood, but he could feel the weight of her attention like gravity. The contract, Vea said, is void. The hunter's face drained. How? Vea straightened. Because I say so. The hunter stared at her for a long moment, then looked at Rin like Rin might explain what kind of nightmare had just walked into his medbay. Rin didn't. The hunter grabbed his injured partner, dragged him toward the door, and staggered out. The four-armed alien followed, clutching its throat, eyes never leaving Vea. The corridor swallowed them. Vea turned back to Rin. Rin stood slowly, baton forgotten in his hand. Who? He said, voice thin. Are you? Vea pulled down her hood. Her silver eyes met his. I did not wish to involve you, she said. That wasn't an answer. Vea's gaze flicked to the broken lock, the scattered supplies, the bullet holes in Rin's cot. Something like regret moved behind her expression, small, controlled. Then she said, I am Vea of House Galen. Rin frowned. Galen. The name tugged at something he'd heard in station gossip, a powerful lineage, an old empire, warriors who fought duels in orbit for sport. Rin's mouth went dry. House Galen is the royal house, Vea said quietly. Rin stared at her, brain refusing to line up the words into meaning. You're the queen? Vea didn't correct him. She didn't confirm it either. But in her silence, Rin felt the truth settle like a stone. Rin sank onto his stool. Oh, that's very bad. Vea's lips curved faintly. Yes. Rin rubbed his face with both hands. Why are bounty hunters trying to drag a queen through a dockside corridor? Vea's eyes hardened. Because my people are tired of peace. Rin lowered his hands. That makes no sense. It does, Vea said. To those who profit from war. Rin exhaled slowly. You're saying your own court attacked you. Vea didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was careful. The Gala is a federation of clans. They call themselves united. They are not. Some wish to test whether their queen is as strong as her title. Rin stared. So they sent killers? They sent a lesson, Vea said. To see if I bleed. Rin's laugh came out cracked. Well, you do. Congratulations to them. Vea's gaze shifted to her stitched wounds. Yes, Rin stood, anger creeping in under the fear. You came here because you wanted to hide. You didn't want them to find you. I came because I was wounded, Vea corrected. And your station is beneath the notice of those who watch the high courts, and you picked my clinic. Vea looked at him steadily. I watched you for 3 days. Rin stiffened. You what? You treated a child whose arm was crushed by cargo, Vea said. You did not ask for payment. You treated an elder whose lungs were failing from cheap air filters. You argued with a smuggler and still stitched his face when he was cut. Rin's throat tightened. I needed someone, Vea said, who would not sell me. Rin swallowed. I'm flattered, terrified, mostly terrified. Vea's expression softened just a fraction. You should be. Rin waved at the mess. So what now? You leave? They come back with more guns? My medbay becomes a war zone? Vea stepped closer. They will not return tonight. You sure? I made an impression, she said. Rin stared at her, then at the door, then back. You know, you could have told me you were a royal warrior queen before you bled all over my floor. Vea's eyes flickered with something like humor. Would you have helped me? Rin opened his mouth, then closed it. He thought of station security, of bribes, of the way people on Dock 9-8 whispered about opportunities. He hated that he wasn't sure. Vaya watched his struggle without judgment. Finally, Rin said quietly, "I think I would have tried." Vaya nodded once. "Then it is enough." Rin gestured at her injuries. "You're not fully healed. Even if you're, whatever you are, the strongest warrior in the gala," Vaya said, as if reciting a fact that bored her. Rin blinked. "You're," she tilted her head. "They did not tell you? The hunters?" Rin's voice came out strangled. "No, they mostly told." Me to open the door. Vaya's gaze turned inward, distant. "My title in the old tongue is Kethvara. It means the blade that does not dull. It is earned through trial." Rin stared at her hands long-fingered, calloused beneath the gloves. Hands that had broken a man's wrist like it was nothing. "And you're here," Rin said slowly, "in my crappy medbay, eating nutrient paste." Vaya's lips curved. "Yes." Rin huffed a laugh, then sobered. "If your court wants to test you, why not go back and prove yourself? Show them they can't touch you." Vaya's eyes sharpened. "Because proving myself is not the goal." Rin frowned. "Then what is?" Vaya stepped closer, and her voice dropped until Rin had to lean in to hear. "They want me to respond with violence," she said. "To remind the gala that their queen is a weapon. If I do, the clans will rally behind me out of fear. The war-hungry will cheer. The traders of blood will profit." Rin swallowed. "And if you don't?" "They will call me weak," Vaya said. "They will try again. They will try harder." Rin's jaw clenched. "So you're stuck." Vaya's gaze held his. "No, I am choosing." Rin looked away, heart heavy. "Why choose the hard path?" Vaya's voice was almost a whisper. "Because I have been strong my entire life. It has brought only more battles." Rin glanced at her scars again, old lines, old pain. A queen forged in conflict. He didn't know what to say. So he did the only thing he knew how to do. He moved to his supply cabinet and started pulling out fresh patches, pain suppressors, a portable brace. Vaya watched. "What are you doing?" "Keeping you alive," Rin said. "Apparently that's my hobby." Vaya's gaze softened. "You owe me nothing." Rin snorted. "Tell that to my conscience." He set the brace on the counter. "Sit. Your shoulder's going to seize up if you don't support it." Vaya hesitated, then sat. Rin fitted the brace carefully, tightening straps. "You're going to need to lay low. Somewhere safer than my medbay." "There is no safe place," Vaya said. Rin considered. "There's an old maintenance access near the coolant tunnels. Most people avoid it because it smells like metal and regret. But it's hidden. And I can bring supplies." Vaya looked at him. "You would do that?" Rin met her gaze. "If you're really the queen, and if your people are playing games with your life, then, yeah, I guess I would." Vaya was silent for a long moment. Then she reached up, unclasped one glove, and placed her bare hand over his. Her skin was cool, the faint luminescent lines pulsing softly beneath it. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't possessive. It was acknowledgement. "A healer," she said, "is rarer than a warrior." Rin's throat tightened. "Don't say that. It makes me feel like I'm about to die." Vaya's lips curved again. "You are not." Rin raised an eyebrow. "How do you know?" "Because," Vaya said, voice calm as winter, "anyone who tries to kill you will have to go through me." Rin stared at her. He believed her. And that, more than the bounty hunters, more than the blood on his floor, scared him most of all. They moved an hour later. Rin shut down his medbay, left a false sign on the door about a contamination leak, and guided Vaya through service corridors that smelled of ozone and old coolant. She moved silently behind him, hood up, cloak wrapped tight. At the access hatch near the coolant tunnels, Rin punched in an old code only 3 maintenance workers still remembered. The hatch opened with a groan. Inside was a narrow room of pipes and a vent grate that hummed with warm air. There was space to sit, to lie down, to hide. Rin set down a pack of supplies. It's not comfortable. Vaya stepped inside, looking around. It is sufficient. Rin exhaled. I'll come back tomorrow night. Same time. If anything changes, if you need. Vaya's hand lifted. Rin. He paused. Vaya's eyes held his. You should leave this station. Rin barked a laugh. And go where? I don't exactly have escape fund money. Vaya's gaze was steady. If you stay, you will be dragged into my storm. Rin looked at her, at the queen hiding in pipes like a fugitive, and felt something stubborn rise in him. I've been in storms my whole life, Rin said. At least this one has a reason. Vaya studied him. You are foolish. Yeah, Rin agreed. But I'm consistent. A long silence. Then Vaya said, when I return to my people, the gala will change. Rin swallowed. You sure you can do that without becoming the weapon they want? Vaya's eyes gleamed silver in the dim. I can be strong without being cruel. Rin nodded slowly. Good, because if you become cruel, I'm going to regret this whole thing. Vaya's lips curved. Then do not regret it. Rin stepped back toward the hatch. Try to sleep. As he turned to leave, Vaya's voice stopped him. Rin, he looked back. Vaya stood in the narrow room, cloak shadowing her face, but her posture was unmistakably regal even here, even hidden. You treated my wounds, she said, never knowing who I was. Rin shrugged. Wounds are wounds. Vaya's eyes softened. No, you treated me. Rin didn't trust his voice, so he just nodded and closed the hatch. The corridor swallowed the sound. As Rin walked back toward his medbay, the station's lights flickered again, casting shadows that stretched and snapped like living things. He knew tomorrow would be worse. He knew the station's underbelly had tasted royal blood, and it would not forget. But for the first time in a long time, Rin also knew something else. Somewhere in the pipes of Dock 9-8, the strongest warrior in the gala was resting because a tired human with a broken medbay had told her to. And if the galaxy wanted her to be a weapon, Rin thought grimly, it was going to have to deal with the fact that she'd learned what it felt like to be cared for. Not feared, not worshipped, just cared for. Outside, far above the dock's flickering lights, ships drifted like distant stars. And in the dark between them, the gala's storm began to turn.